Okay, today we're going to learn about the different functions of the different organelles within the cell. So we're basically going to open up a cell, look at all the different parts of the cell, and see why cells are so important to living things. Why cells are the basic unit of structure and function, because they are so important. They control everything that goes on in our body. So you're going to learn how they do that. So our essential question for the day is, what job or function does each organelle inside a cell perform to keep a cell running? Okay, so this goes with learning target 7 and 8. Learning target 7, you will be able to draw, label, and I apologize, that's misspelled, describe, explain the cell, its organelles, and their functions in plant cells, animal cells, and single-celled organisms, because they're going to be a little bit different. You're also going to be able to explain the differences between plants and animal cells and single-celled organisms. So those are our learning targets for this section of notes. Okay, so we're going to just start out going through the different parts of a cell. We're going to go through all the organelles. Okay, so the first organelle we're going to talk about is a cell membrane. So the cell membrane, from the picture below, that's a cross-section of what the cell membrane looks like. Basically, a cell membrane surrounds a cell. Okay, and if you notice next to cell membrane, I put P and A. P stands for a plant cell, A stands for an animal cell. So a cell membrane is found in both a plant and an animal cell. Okay, we talk about a cell membrane, we kind of describe it as something being semi-permeable, like a window screen. So you guys know in your house you have a window screen. It lets things in and out. It keeps things that are too big out so it doesn't come in, like flies and bugs, because we don't want them in our house. But then it'll let air go through, in and out. Well, that's kind of what a cell membrane does. Okay, if you look at the cross section, look at those little yellow little circles. Those are kind of like the parts of a window screen that let things in and out. Okay, what a cell membrane does is it's going to let nutrients into a cell, so things that our body needs, okay, like those carbohydrates we were talking about, those chemicals, those proteins, the lipids, it's going to let those in and out. It's also going to let like oxygen in and out, because we know we need oxygen for our bodies. It's going to let carbon dioxide go out as a waste. So a cell membrane is going to let nutrients in and out, it's going to let waste go in and out, and it's going to keep pathogens out. So pathogens is a new word. Pathogens means something that can harm us. So it's something that will cause a disease in us. So cell membranes kind of help keep bad things out of our cells so we don't get sick or infected. Sometimes it does a good job of that, sometimes it doesn't, because we know we all do still get sick. Okay, so that's a picture of what a cell membrane looks like, and it surrounds a cell. So if we look over here to the left side right here where my cursor is, this is a kind of a picture of a cell. That outer covering right there would be the cell membrane. Okay, the next one is a cell wall. Now notice in parentheses in all caps I put P only. That means it's only in a plant cell. So animal cells do not have a cell wall. We are considered animal cells, so we don't have a cell wall. It's only found in plants. What a cell wall does is it just protects the plant cell and it gives it its shape. So plant cells look more rectangular in shape than animal cells. Animal cells are more circular. So it's one of the big ways that we can tell the difference between plant and animal cells is by their shape. Plant cells are square, we're more circular. And then again, you can see the picture that I've given you. That's a picture of a cross-section of a cell wall. Kind of just shows you what it's made up of. But it's basically what, if you look it over to the left where my cursor is moving, that's a picture of a plant cell. Okay, the outer covering that's in the light green is the cell wall. Inside that cell wall, that thinner covering is the cell membrane. Okay. Another thing both plant and animal cells have is cytoplasm. We kind of mentioned that before in our last set of notes. That's where some of the genetic material is located for prokaryotic cells who aren't very complex. Okay, cytoplasm is kind of like gelatin. It's kind of like Jell-O. It's a material that basically all the organelles reside in. They sit in. Okay, it's also where some chemical reactions occur. So things like photosynthesis and cellular respiration, the chemical reactions that occur because of those are going to occur in the cytoplasm, and we will get into photosynthesis and respiration a little bit later. Okay, it also allows the organelles to flow around inside the cell. Okay, so it's going to create movement for the organelles. So the cytoplasm, if you look at the picture, these are all different organelles. For example, this is a mitochondria that we haven't gotten to, Golgi bodies, these are little tiny ribosomes, these are lysosomes, these are all different organelles that we haven't gotten to. They're sitting in this clear substance called the cytoplasm. And again, both plant and animal cells have the cytoplasm. Now we're going to get to the big kahuna, the nucleus. Obviously, it's in both plant and animal cells. The nucleus controls and directs all cell activities. It's usually located somewhere near the center of a cell. So in this previous picture right up here, this would be the nucleus, that big purple. For some reason, they always like to color the nucleus purple. But just on a side note, all your organelles don't have a color. So even though you see a color in these pictures, they're really not that color, except for chloroplasts, which we'll get to, simply because they're usually clear. Okay, so the nucleus controls and directs all cell activities. The reason why it does that is that it contains our DNA. That's our genetic code. That's what makes you different from somebody else. So this would be that purple part of the cell, the nucleus. Inside the nucleus, what you're going to see, this is called the nucleolus. This is where all your DNA is contained before it starts to reproduce. And so yeah, that's the nucleus. It's going to contain our genetic materials. And it's also going to tell us what to do. It's going to tell the cell what to do. Okay, so chloroplasts, notice they're only found in the plants. Now, chloroplast is the only organelle that is a color, and it's green. So obviously, because humans are not green, we don't have chloroplasts. Okay, plants, however, are green, and therefore they have chloroplasts. They contain a green pigment called chlorophyll, and chloroplast is where the process of photosynthesis takes place, where plants can make their own food. Now, animals cannot. We cannot make our own food. Plants are very special that way. They can make their own food. And we talked about that last year, about how that's why plants have the most energy in an ecosystem, because they can make their own food. They're those autotrophs. So the reason why they can make their own food is because they can photosynthesize. And that process occurs inside the chloroplast of the cell. So the job of the chloroplast is to basically make the plant's food. So that's a pretty important job, pretty important function. The mitochondria is found in both plant and animal cells. It's called the powerhouse of the cell because it creates energy. Okay, so the mitochondria creates energy. We call that energy, it's in the form of ATP, which stands for adenine triphosphate. This is where the process of cellular respiration occurs. Cellular respiration is where we take in oxygen, sugar, which is in the form of glucose, and we turn that into energy. Okay, we transfer that into energy. And so we basically transfer chemical energy into mechanical energy. That occurs in the mitochondria. Now, both plant and animal cells have the mitochondria, okay, because both plant and animal cells have to create energy, right? Remember, that was one of the living things' needs, is we have to be able to have energy. So all living things that have cells have a mitochondria. Okay, and I know this seems like a lot, but we're not done. We've got a few more left to do for the organelles. It's quite a few organelles in our cells because they're so important. Okay, one other organelle in our cell is a ribosome. It's found in both plant and animal cells. Ribosomes are the little tiny circular, okay, you can see them, they've got it pointed in this picture. The ribosomes are the little tiny circular dots. They're actually located on the winding thing called the endoplasmic reticulum, but it's little tiny dots. That's the ribosomes. They're very tiny. They make protein for the cell. So remember, protein is a chemical cells use to help build and repair other organelles. So proteins help cells repair. So if they get a little bit damaged or they need to break down an old organelle that's no longer working, proteins help do that. So ribosomes make protein for the cell. Ribosomes actually start out getting made in the nucleus. So you know how nucleus direct all cell activities and they control the cell. Well, they make the ribosomes, and then the ribosomes get sent out into the cell where they are needed. So that's a ribosome. Golgi bodies, found in both plant and animal cells, they're kind of a funny shape, folded looking. They package and sort proteins for the cell. So they basically send that protein where it needs to go. So if there's an area of the cell that needs to break down some stuff, they'll send that protein out in that area. So they kind of are like a FedEx. So when you go and ship things, you have an address on your box, and then the FedEx people will take your box where it needs to go. That's kind of what a Golgi body does. Wherever that protein is needed inside a cell, the Golgi bodies are going to sort them and package them and send them out. So if you look at the Golgi body, it's usually outside somewhere past the nucleus. Here's the nucleus, this is your Golgi body. You can see those little circles, those are the ribosomes. So that's what the Golgi body is doing. It's sorting and packaging. The little circle things represent the proteins. It's packaging and sorting the proteins. Okay, then we've got what we will always kind of refer to as the ER. We shorten it. So endoplasmic reticulum, that's kind of a mouthful. We just call it the ER. It's found in both plant and animal cells. They transport ribosomes. So if you notice from the picture, okay, the ER always surrounds the nucleus, because remember, the nucleus makes the ribosomes. So then they send them out, and the ER transports those ribosomes. So it's going to move those ribosomes away from the nucleus and direct them where they need to go. So the area of the ER that actually has the ribosomes moving around, we call that the rough ER. The area of the ER that doesn't have ribosomes yet is called the smooth ER. So basically the only function of the ER is to transport those ribosomes where they're needed. So if you can see in the picture, the rough ER is the ones that the ER that has the ribosomes. Smooth ER does not have ribosomes. Okay, then we have a vacuole. Now it's a little bit different. They're found in both plant and animal cells, but there is a difference. A plant cell only has one big vacuole. In animal cells, there are many. All a vacuole does is store food and waste of the cell. So waste like extra CO2, anything that when organelles get broken down, those are waste. Vacuole will store it for a certain amount of time, and then it'll get expelled out of the cell. So if you look at this picture, it's kind of a clear circular shaped, and this is in a plant cell. A plant cell only has one big vacuole. Animal cell has many. And then the last organelle that we're going to talk about is a lysosome. It's only found in the animal cell. A lysosome helps break down materials in a cell. They're circular as well. Don't get them confused with ribosomes. They're bigger than ribosomes. And what I'm going to do is show you a little website that actually gives you a clipping about lysosomes and how they work. So it's actually a little video, so I'm going to let you listen to it. And it's going to explain what a lysosome does. The lysosomes are in kind of that orangey pink color.
Lysosomes are membrane-bound vesicles that contain hydrolytic enzymes. The hydrolytic enzymes degrade proteins, nucleic acids, lipids, and carbohydrates, and are formed in the endoplasmic reticulum. These enzymes are then transported to the Golgi apparatus by transport vesicles. The lysosomes arise from the Golgi apparatus. When particles such as viruses or bacteria are ingested by phagocytosis, the lysosome fuses with the particle-containing vesicle, called a phagosome, and delivers the hydrolytic enzymes. Lysosomes also fuse with organelles, such as old mitochondria. This results in the destruction and recycling of these structures.
Okay, so based on that little video, lysosome is going to break down materials in the cell. The video talked about chemicals that it's going to break down, like carbohydrates, nucleic acids, proteins and lipids, and then it also breaks down spare parts, so spare organelles that are no longer working. Okay, so that is the end of our notes today, and that should have explained all the organelles that are parts of the cell.